Good afternoon and greetings from Hillsdale. I hope things are going well with you. We are working hard here, trying to get ready for moving courses to online. And this is just a little practice run that I'm doing right now just to see how well this works. I'm doing a short video. So what I'm going to talk about is just a little bit about this article here, which has to do with, what is it? I don't know if you can see this. Um, White House expresses support for making immediate cash payments to Americans as part of the coronavirus stimulus package. Oh, great. So the idea here, depending on what proposal goes through, is to have a $1,000 payment to every American, which would be great. Wouldn't that be exciting? The idea here is, of course, that will stimulate the economy, be a good boost when everything is declining. Now, does that make sense? I'm a little bit skeptical, and I'll say why. First of all, why is the economy declining? Well, part of it is panic, and the stock market is going down because people are sell, sell, sell. But what's going on in stores? What's going on in stores is a boost of demand. There's a great deal of purchasing, and you can't buy much in the way of toilet paper or stuff like this. This is hand sanitizer. I've got my supply here, guarding it carefully. In fact, you should probably see this. This is the big one that people get to use, and I've got it all prepared to mark. So that's for the guests who come in, and things like that. People are buying supplies so they can survive for a long period of time if they're quarantined, locked up, locked down, something like this. And of course, in the midst of all this, we have these runs on the stores. So shelves are being stripped, and you would think with this boost of demand, prices would go up. Well, the state of Michigan and other states have been looking into so-called price gouging, and trying to talk to stores and tell them, don't raise price, don't let prices go up, raise price, don't have a higher markup. I just heard someone from a retailers association talking about how it's just shameful that for some products the price has gone up 1.5 times what it normally is, just because there's more demand. Actually, that's what you want prices to do when there's higher demand. Is prices should go up because that, first of all, gives a signal for buyers to conserve the good, to use it more wisely. Only the higher demand buyers will be purchasing it, and as with look for alternatives as well. And on the other hand, it's a signal to suppliers, produce more and innovate, find new ways to make this stuff, other substitutes, things like that. So increasing prices have the right incentives. And holding them down, well, in a time of this exploding demand, it's not surprising we see the stores being stripped of goods. So here's a question. If we give everybody $1,000 more, how the heck is that going to help? Well, the Soviets tried this, but we haven't had our Soviet lecture yet, so let's not talk about that. The Soviets did try that, though, and you had stores with empty shelves. It was only partly because they didn't produce stuff. They did produce some things, but those would sell out very quickly. The queuing, standing in line to purchase things. Prices were not flexible in the Soviet Union. Probably a little more serious thing is that you don't get the supply boost that you need. But something else is going on too. People are being locked down and people are being quarantined. And quarantine if you're sick, it makes a kind of sense, but the lockdown. Perhaps in some ways, maybe from an epidemiologist's standpoint, it's warranted, a public health perspective. Think about what it's doing to the economy. If you can't work, you can't produce. Now, as an economist, an econ professor, I can sit in my office. I'm producing a lecture, doing a talk here. That's easy. I can do that. But suppose you're a plumber. Suppose you're an electrician. Suppose you are a waiter, waitress, something like that. You're a server in a restaurant, bar, something like this. You work in retail stores selling clothing. You're a mechanic. Doing all kinds of important work. you're not going to work from home. You can't possibly do those things. And so what they're doing is shutting down the economy. Manufacturing. Are we shutting down manufacturing? I don't know. I don't know the extent to which right now people have been locked down across the country, and I think it's not happened. But if you can't go to work, then what are you going to do? You're not going to produce. So you've got a very serious supply shock. Go ahead, throw $1,000 per person into that and see what happens. You've got supply going down, demand going up. What do you think is going to happen? And of course, we will also control prices just to make sure it's fair, moral, just. So this proposal, to me, seems, I'm trying to think of polite words, not very productive. Here, how's that? That's probably pretty good. So I'm not a big fan of the stimulus proposal. What would I do? Well, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I sure as heck wouldn't start cranking the monetary pumps. I don't see how that is going to save us. Actually, I have thought a little bit about what I would do if I were, how do you deal with something like this, the disease problem, possibility of it spreading. I don't have any inside information or professional training on this, but it does seem to me that isolating people who are sick or quarantining small areas of people where there's an outbreak or something makes more sense than shutting down an entire population. You kind of do it targeted. Now, whether that makes sense or whether that's right or not, I can't say for sure, but it doesn't have the economic effects that we're talking about with a nationwide quarantine or lockdown, or a big regional one, the way that they did in China. That's another, perhaps just not so much about the $1,000, though obviously related. Keep in mind that what we've seen with respect to things like toilet paper, hand sanitizer, et cetera, is a big demand shock. There's no reason, these things can be and are produced in the United States. This one was made in USA with 90% or more US parts. I guess that means alcohol. And vitamin E and aloe. It leaves hands smooth. So, made in America. Same for toilet paper. A lot of toilet paper, I think, paper products also come from Canada. So there's not a supply disruption there. Electronics, auto parts, things like this, big supply disruptions are coming because China shut down. And so we're going to see a real supply shock that I think is already kind of moving through the system. And so we're not out of this yet. Go ahead and throw more money onto that. Yeah, see what happens. I guess the other thing is that I always say, well, how are you going to pay for this? Are they going to give everybody $1,000 in some sort of a stimulus payment? Well, obviously the way to pay for that, and so that it doesn't add to the deficit, would be to tax everyone $1,000, which I highly recommend. But we'll do that in a year. We'll see if Ricardian equivalence works. Ricardian equivalence is the idea that if you give people a tax break, then they will simply save that much, or save in order to be ready for the tax burden that comes later. So at any rate, I'm not so certain that the policies that are being pursued politically make, economically, make no sense. Let's put it that way. And we haven't even talked about the 0% interest rate that the Fed is now wisely, excuse me, the Fed is now wisely come up with. And at any rate, I haven't talked about that, but politically, I started to say it doesn't make sense politically, but what's your goal? If you're a politician, you want power, you want support, it might be the thing to do. But these things are not, the economic and the political fallout of this will be negative, and they're not pursuing good policies, so far as I can tell. So on that ever so happy note, just remember, things, no, I was going to say things could be a lot worse, but they probably will be. No, things are not nearly as as bad as we're still in the richest country in the world, and it's possible to get out of this. Just keep our heads about us. All right, keep your head about yourself. Be sure to use this stuff. Keep your social distance or whatever, which I've always advocated. Get away. All right, stay well, take care, stay in touch. Talk to you later. Bye.